This is an ecosystem that is going to continue to be very challenging because it is male dominated.
That means not only recruiting more women, but ensuring they stay and thrive across all levels of the cycling industry.
So we have to start asking more questions, wanting people to feel like, again, we're welcoming you and we want you to belong. Because, sometimes we've had events that say, adaptive riders are welcome, but when they get there, the environment or some of the logistics really can't support a rider in a wheelchair.
They were trying to use a male running dummy to test a sports bra for women.
So we talk about the marketing media complex as this huge sort of ecosystem that starts with engineers designing products and ends with a woman who doesn't feel like she's part of the sport. And of course, the ripple that you see through all of these different stages, from product design to participation, is male dominance. And until we change that, it's very difficult to say to a woman, you are part of cycling culture, you are part of this sport.
Welcome everyone to Ride to Success, live recording at Women in Cycling Summit Series. I'm Pedro, the host of Ride to Success. I'm a cyclist and I'm on a mission to take people and take them on a journey to a more productive, creative and active life through the power of the bike. And before we get started, I need to acknowledge, as I'm hosting this live recording, that my experience is of a heterosexual white male working in the cycling industry and being also an active cyclist. As a result, my approach with all my guests is to come from a place of curiosity. And the Summit Series objective is about to end gender inequity across our sector, with a clear ambition to get to 50% balanced workforce by 2030. That means not only recruiting more women, but ensuring they stay and thrive across all levels of the cycling industry. Our panel today brings together voices that reflect product, media, and leadership domains, all of which are key levers in driving that change. We will explore not only what's going right, but also, and crucially, what needs to improve. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce all the three guests, and I would like, as I introduce them, to give a round of applause to each one of them. So first of all, at the far end, Angela Kraft-Williams, Global Talent and Inclusion Leader at SRAM. In the middle, we have Dr. Fiona Spotswood, Associate Professor at the University of Bristol and Lead Researcher on projects fostering inclusive action sports. And last but not least, Claudia Glass, Founder and CEO of Swijin. Brilliant. So the way the panel is going to work is there are three key topics that we're going to touch. First one, women in leadership. The second one being media representation. And the third one being inclusive product development. And we're going to start at the top. We're going to start with Angela. You have led HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion projects and strategy at global organizations. And my question to start off is, what practice have you seen work best to retain women and prepare them for leadership?
When it comes to leadership, I think intentionality is one of the practices that work best, meaning you can't just think it's going to happen. So when you think about from creating your talent pipeline, where you recruit is important. If you want to recruit women or women from diverse backgrounds, then you need to go where they are. So at SRAM, we recently started going to SWE, Society of Women Engineers. We also foster STEM programs at the high school level. So I think inclusivity is important as well, but intentionality with that as the driving force is really going to sort of get you into places and spaces where you'll find women to bring into the organization.
Mm-hmm. And so what are you saying is that it's not enough to be just rely on kind of organic growth. You need to be intentional with it.
Correct.
So what, from your experience, are the targets to get us there?
So at SRAM and in other places that I've worked, but specifically at SRAM, we do a lot in terms of leadership and mentorship. So we have senior leaders sponsor things like the Women's Leadership Networking Ring, where we bring women together, we introduce them to different topics to help with their leadership development, as well as to learn more about themselves and their own leadership style. I think tools and resources are important, meaning you have an environment that is welcoming to women. When you think about young women and say nursing rooms, when you think about being intentional about bringing events and speakers to women so that they can hear and share in those experiences, I think that is important. When you look at long-range things around how you promote women, when you look at an annual compensation survey to make sure women are paid fairly. So when you look at those different types of elements and you bring them together, that's what makes an environment welcoming and inclusive to women, to not only retain them, but also to help promote them and help them develop.
What are kind of mentor programs, and I think this opens a discussion to everyone as well, what mentor programs, what other initiatives have you seen in your roles that allow and help to get more women onto the board level and into management level?
At SRAM, we have a women's leadership networking ring. That's again where we bring sort of a cohort of women together. We have it led by two women, a senior leader, and then what we'll call like a director that will have again one-on-ones. But I think both formal and informal mentoring, I also want to speak to that, where sort of you either adopt someone or someone adopts you, and you have an opportunity just one-on-one to get to know them, understand what their career aspirations are, but also really understand how, just based on sharing your experiences and some of what you have gone through, can help them sort of not either feel like they're on an island by themselves or feel frustrated like this is the first time they've heard it. I know we talk about generational divides and each generation has its own sort of hot spot or the way that they work or think about things, but I think at the end of the day, there's still that glue that holds us together, that at some point we as women feel that we'll either hit this glass ceiling, we feel we're not heard, we may not be invited or find ourselves in the room where it happens. But I think by mentoring and having people help you understand how to navigate that makes it a little bit easier. And that's what I like to do at this point in my career, is to give back and help people understand how to navigate, because sometimes corporate's a little challenging, and to know that they're not there by themselves.
What has been your experience, Fiona and Claudia?
In mentorship?
Yeah, in like being seen, getting heard, like you are as a founder, I'm sure you had to kind of push open quite a few doors to get where you are now. What has been your experience in that regard, to be seen, be heard?
Proactively probably reaching out to specific, we were talking about media, and so I was at the time trying to get Swijin on the map in Switzerland after we were just shortly about to launch a really innovative project that many taxpayers also helped to fund. And so I really did research a female journalist at the NCSET, and I wrote her and pitched her the project, and she had been interested in women in sports, and so we got an entire page spread from that. But I'm more at the other side of that, right? I'm not the one mentoring. I'm still leading people to help the young company get more coverage and be taken more seriously. Yeah.
I mean, my research on Project Fierce, recently we have looked at gender inequality behind the scenes in marketing and media. And I work in a business school. We're interested in how the marketing and media world works in, cycling sport and in mountain biking, which is our focus. And what we've seen through our research with women and men, but talking about the women respondents at the moment, they talk about this world which is really difficult to make traction in for women. And I think it's probably the same in all environments that are male dominated. But you throw in a bit of kind of, masculine culture as well from the sports side, and you get a really difficult environment for women. And I think what we've seen in our research is a number of things. One, which I'll talk about a lot tomorrow, but people who recognise the challenge for women in these spaces that are really male-dominated and really masculine, both men and women, and they reach out and they push the doors open, they push things back, and they recognise the need to proactively, intentionally support women coming up through the ranks. And that has been so important, and that's happened on the men and the women's side. And when women get to the top and it's been a fight, they hold people back, and they let those voices be heard, and ensure that women around the table get their voice heard, because they recognise how difficult that can be. And we've heard some incredible stories through our research of where that's been really successful. But it's still a problem, and it's still a hidden problem, particularly in early career journalists, in media, in marketing, where there's very little power. And it's really difficult to get your voice heard. And I'll probably say it again tomorrow, but when we did our research with media and marketing professionals, between the time we did the research and between then and when the paper was published, 3 of our respondents left the industry.
That's a good point, because I wanted to touch on that, and that's kind of a question directly, specifically at Angela, but you can contribute as well. And this came from a report from the British Bicycling Association in UK that said that where data shows that nearly 71% of women in the cycling industry have considered leaving for multiple reasons, but some of them include exclusion or harassment. And, Angela, from your perspective, where you stand, how can leadership culture be reshaped or shaped, because it can be completely different, to stop these from happening?
Yeah. To piggyback what you said, I think one of the things is training. I like to think when people know better, they do better. And you want to say or start the conversation with people come from a place of good intent. But I think it's important to understand allyship. And allyship means that people that are holding the power, they sort of have the responsibility to sort of make the way for others and to sort of make that space or be that voice at the table. And an example is I worked at a bank, and I was in a room full of all men. I happened to be the only one in that room. And somebody said, we're at the same level. Oh, Angela, why don't you take notes? And the leader said, really, Andrew, you have a pen and a paper. Why don't you take the notes? And to me, that was powerful. Like, thank you. But again, it goes back to those gender stereotypes. So I think one, training or awareness of around allyship, ally skills, and what that can do, how that can help open up the dialogue in places and spaces at every level, not just the leadership level. But in terms of specifically leadership, I think leaders have to demonstrate and lead by example. And are we perfect? No. There are times I will call our senior leaders out. There are times I'm called out. Sometimes I'm in a meeting and I'm like, you guys, and it's like, oh, wait, time out. Sorry, there's not just all guys. So it's little things, but it's also big things. But I will continue to go back. It's foundational of intentionality. So when you walk into a room and you see that there are people who tend to either sit in the back or they don't speak, it's always to look back and encourage them. As the leader, don't always speak first, because sometimes that sets the tone of the conversation. So sometimes it's just trying to make some of those considerations mindful as we are talking and as we are working with our senior leaders in different spaces. But I think the other piece is that person on the other side also needs to be a bit more open, and everything cannot be assumed to be a microaggression. It could be an honest mistake, and sometimes I do think we can give people a bit more grace.
I agree. But I do agree, of course. But I think there's different levels of operation, and I think a lot of our research has shown that there's smaller organisations or organisations where there are like media organisations in the industry where every day is a cut and thrust, and really there isn't much intentionality going on. Most of it is just routine, everyday patterns of activity. We do this because we've always done this and we haven't really got time to think about it. And it's those situations where I think the gender dynamics of the industry really play out.
Yes.
Because if you've always booked this journalist to do something and that journalist happens to be a man because he's really experienced and he's really reliable and he's always been there and it's really busy and I need to get this sorted by tomorrow, those are the moments when it's really challenging to step back and say, this is my chance. This is my chance to actually find a woman freelance journalist. That's going to cost me money. It's going to take me time. I need to book it in advance. But I know that this is one of those moments where I have an opportunity to shift the representation of women in the sport. And that might lead to...
Yeah, no, again, the intentionality. I think for us, we have field guides that are men and women. And we can give examples where there'll be two of them and the men will go to the men. And from Ally Skills, they'll say, you know what? She's the one that's leading, not me. And so they'll give that opportunity, and over, one or two times, now they actually ask for that field guide. They know that she's capable. But you're right, it's a shame that that's not the perception walking in the door. But it's how do you break that pattern? How do you shift that paradigm?
And that's really important as well, because when we talk to smaller brands and smaller organisations, especially ones that really struggled to engage women, have any women on the workforce, their customer base was over 90% men, and they said, we just don't know what to do. We can't do anything until the big guys do it. And I'm like, the big guys are doing it. Yeah. So this is it's really important that the big brands take the lead in this space as well.
Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of, playing devil's advocate here slightly. There are still many that don't do it, that see it as maybe optional, maybe secondary. So what do you say to them? I mean, Angela, take the lead on this, but if you want.
I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you're asking why would companies not take the opportunity to have diverse voices in the room, seats at the table, I don't know, to make more innovative products, to expand their product base, to eventually make more money, it's a win-win. It's a business decision that's wrapped in doing the right thing, I guess. But you're right, some do, for whatever reason, have this barrier. Again, I oversee recruiting, and at times it's, well, do you want me to hire the best candidate or do you want me to hire a diverse candidate? I'm sorry, it wasn't meant to be an either-or equation. You can find both the talented and a diverse candidate. So I think, again, it goes back to education. It goes back to helping people see sort of the broader picture. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you continue, as I said when I got to SRAM, you can continue to fish in the same pond. You're going to get the same fish. If our goal is to have a variety of a banquet, then we need to go to other ponds. And so now that we're doing that, we're getting sort of the benefit, and it is helping us be a better company and a better workplace because we have more voices, because we have a diverse set of people with different backgrounds and experiences.
I would just add to this, having started a female-led company, what I'm seeing, of course, is that women would like to work for the company because they read the language behind it and they understand what, women, we take them seriously. Women would like to be taken seriously. And they haven't been, in some industries, especially the bicycling industry, have had really horrible stories of what they've actually endured, and that they would continue to go and try to fight through this is admirable, but also they're exhausted and they're throwing up their hands and like, let's just build our own thing. And that now we're seeing a lot of female-specific innovation in sports, and it's fragmented, it's all over the place, but it has the same intentionality. So,
I mean, there's a good point to that, because from where I stand, with the media kind of neglecting the representation side, and we'll touch on media in more detail on that, but with the media neglecting to represent more and better, then it falls onto the women to create their own media companies, create their own channels to communicate, whether it is through social media, through podcasts, whatever it is. But they say no, I'll raise my hand, I'll do it, and I guess well, that's what I see. But what is your experience?
Yeah, 100%. I think the digital revolution, I mean, social media is a feminist technology, right? It's giving women a voice where they haven't had a voice before, specifically in sport. It's been absolutely incredible for allowing women to tell their own stories in their own way. We were talking about before the podcast, we were talking about women needing space to develop their own rules and their own ways of playing, their own ways of developing sports that have been dominated by men. And those stories, those images, that content is definitely being produced by women and shared online and shared in digital spaces. And I have always felt like the traditional kind of niche, the traditional media for cycling just hasn't kept up at all. And our research has showed time and time again that, you know, women feel like specialist magazines, specialist content is just not for them. And I always go back to a quote, and I did some research with some women, and I said, so what magazine do you read? These are absolutely avid mountain bikers. And this woman looked at me and said, no women read those magazines. And it got to the point where I felt like an idiot asking the question. So definitely women are creating that content. But there is such an opportunity there for that specialist media to get on board and to support this amazing change that we're seeing in in sport, in action sport, in cycling specifically, and pave the way for women's participation. They have such an important job to do.
Mm-hmm. It also plays to the fact that women want to create their own businesses. And I wanted to, we will come back to media, but I wanted to bring Claudia in as the founder of Swijin. I mean, as a female founder, what does designing with women mean to you?
So it's really starting from scratch, like not looking towards any male model of anything at all as a foundation. You look at her body, you look at her needs, her pain points, and then you start working with sports physiologists, right? You understand from raw materials level up how you're going to build something. So we really did sort of put on our blinders to anything that existed and began with the female. And right, so what we discovered right away, we worked with the Swiss Federal Laboratories for Materials Science and Technology, and lo and behold, it's 2024 at this time, at the beginning of 24, and they were trying to use a male running dummy to test a sports bra for women.
I mean, that's such a brilliant anecdote, in a bad way. Sorry, I don't want to like glorify it at all, but it shows that the industry has been using traditional product development, focusing on the male figure, right, for in your case, and then trying to let's try and just do the same, and sell it to women now. And your case is very much different. So just carry on with as you were saying.
And I think women, I don't know, by nature are curious to sort of do something completely new or see maybe potential where old models don't. So one of my earliest advisors who worked for a sportswear company, is a legacy company, I was talking about the innovation in a t-shirt, and I remember him laughing, like, how can a t-shirt be innovative, you know? I thought, oh, for a woman, a t-shirt can be incredibly innovative. And so I feel maybe the exciting part about if I get to continue to build this brand, which I really, really want to, is to say, I don't know, I'm not looking at old models or male models anymore, but we're really looking just specifically at the female athletes, and then working with chemical companies, yarn manufacturers, and really innovating something that has never existed and allowing women to experience it and give us the harsh feedback when it fails, because it will fail.
So it's for people that don't know Swijin, give us a one minute pitch of what it is, because I'm aware that people might not know what it is. Sorry.
Okay. So, right, I was a runner myself, and when I was on vacation several years ago, I wanted to combine my run with a swim, and I was wearing my traditional sports bra and running pants, and I wanted to jump in the water, take a swim, and come back home without changing clothes. And when I came back to Switzerland, I started researching into biomimicry and found the Swiss Federal Laboratories, and they have a division called Biomimetic Membranes in Textiles. So we did a mini grant and then we did a major grant, and over those 3 years, we were really embarking to create this hybrid product. So fast drying, and it's complex because when a textile is wet, it doesn't perform at all like it is when it's dry. So we were about a quarter of the way into this when a Olympic marathon runner who worked for female health at a famous Swiss sporting organization came to us and said, we hear you're making a sports bra, forget about it having to swim, we just need a functional sports bra. And so that's when we conducted a survey across Switzerland with athletes from all different body shapes and different sports, and the same 3 pain points came back again and again. So we're like, okay, now it makes sense. There's thousands of sports bras on the market, but not a single one of these solves all problems in one product. And so that's when this niche idea really became our mission, and so much of what we had already studied for this hybrid product was transferred to the sports bra in general. Did I do that under a minute? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Brilliant. No, it's great. It gives a great overview. But I guess kind of building up from what you said is, and you mentioned that unfortunate anecdote. Do you feel that the sports in general industry structurally is still stuck in its own in the past ways?
Yeah, because so what I'm seeing now, it began with, research. So my journey began just with research and talking to female athletes. And then it went into, like, who are the decision makers across the sports organizations and in the bigger sportswear brands and in sponsorships with female athletes. And so I think that's a huge area that needs to get much more media exposure, is what's going on in sponsorship, because that's where the money goes to the athletes, and the women are not getting it at all. It's horrific, even if they're bringing in the same amount of money. It is absolutely horrific, and it needs to have a structural change. So now what I'm seeing, and it was really exciting because last week, I was so excited the night before I got here I couldn't sleep, because I had spoken to 2 women who in Switzerland, and it's happening all over the place now, but have taken control of sponsorship. So I write an athlete who's famous, I write her sponsor. He's a man, and he's dealing with all kinds of athletes, also really lucrative contracts for male athletes. So even though for this particular female athlete, our offer may have really made a financial difference in her life and was something of gravitas, to him it was peanuts. And so he neglects the offer. He doesn't write me back. Then he's on vacation. Then he has a runny nose. I don't know. I never got it. He still to this day hasn't written me back. And I wrote, she's like, has he gotten back to me? So these new women who I spoke to have decided they're starting a female-specific sponsorship agency. And then we started brainstorming, what would that look like structurally? How would that honor a female athlete through her cycles, through her pregnancies, right? Through her injuries. We know females have 8 times more ACL injuries than men. How can we create a model that works within the ecosystems, and it really in systems thinking, it goes into politics even. And I'm like, this is so fun to do because there's so much change that can be made.
Starting from scratch, you're really thinking about what needs to be done, what is best for our interests. And what was the conclusion to that? What in terms of
that
building
conversation with these women and building something? I mean, we're just at the beginning of it, but it feels like they're doing it. I'm not doing it. I just get to watch these young women do this, and it's so exciting for them because they have relationships to these athletes, and so they're now calling them. They're playing at all these, and they're getting them all to come to flock on board, and I'm like, I actually don't want to work with any of these agencies anymore. I just want to work with you.
Yeah.
It would be so easy.
But it's interesting because sort of the business side has some of those same challenges, whereas when you think about young women sort of kind of moving into management positions, and then they get, they have pregnancy, they start families, and then they struggle with, how do they get back on board? And I remember being in a room and somebody was like, oh, we can't consider her for that regional manager position. I think she's going to start a family. I'm like, really? Because you got 3 kids and you're like a VP. Yeah. But those are the conversations that happen. And we have to remind them, like, you can't have 2 sets of standards. But it's not just that. So how do we make it easier for women to feel their job will be here when you get back? How do we help them on-ramp back into the organization like they didn't miss a beat? And I think, we're trying, but we're still, it's a struggle. It's that balance.
I mean, that's a great point because, like, for instance, if you take maternity leave, it's a critical point where there is a large drop-off of women from the workforce.
Yeah.
Looking at what other industries are doing, and we kind of touched a little briefly here. You feel free to everyone to contribute, but I was going to direct this question specifically, Angela. What, from your experience from other industries, what have you seen that works and still needs to be implemented in the cycling industry?
I think with SRAM we do, and other companies, we do things like parental leave. So, the father can also take time off. We have adoption benefits, because again, how you create a family is still a family. We have a new thing this year, I think our benefits team implemented, because we have a lot of people that travel to races and events, that if you're a mom and you are still nursing, that the service will come and pick up your milk, freeze it, and fly it back home for you. It's remembering that people have different needs and trying to meet them where they are. It's in North America, we're trying to get it over here. I know, I'm looking at my team like, what? We're working on it. And that's the other hard thing. A lot of things we can offer in the States. We very much try very hard to try to find parity over in some of our other countries, but it's looking at how can we support you as a holistic person, not just you as our employee. So it's something as simple as even having hybrid schedules. Sometimes it's hard to come in 5 days a week, so having flexible schedules. If people are traveling, can we help with, my other company would say, if you have to travel more than 3 days, we will help pay for daycare assistance or whatever that childcare needs to look like if you need it, be it single or not, but help us help you.
Yeah. I think that, if I could just come in on that, I mean, this is outside my area of research. However, I'm still going to have an opinion about it.
Feel free.
Because I think what we're hearing is that it's so important to recognise that women are not a female version of men.
Right.
I know that sounds really stupid, but actually, women they're different. They have unique values, unique experiences, and they're valuable in their own right. They don't need to be compared to men all the time. And there's loads of amazing feminist research that looks at women acting as men in different organisations, and sport is such an important context for that. We don't have to pretend to be men to be validated, or we shouldn't have to be. And so what we have to do as an ecosystem, someone used the word, in cycling, is to recognise women for who they are and the values they can bring, and value their expertise as women, and not try and force them to be men, either in participation or in business or in any other form. And recognise that that they're valuable in their own right. And that's really difficult when the workforce is predominantly male, because it is asking an awful lot. And so I think underpinning a lot of this is diversity in the workforce, because you get a different way of thinking and you open up to so many innovative ideas and just different ways of doing business, which we need, I think.
I mean, it's proven that when you have people in management level that are diverse, it shows in the sales figures, the revenue, profit increases. That is not just women; it's like people of different ethnic backgrounds, of races. It just increases the kind of the narratives, the potential for businesses, and also future-proofs the kind of the industry where you work, or the business.
You. Correct.
Yeah. And I wanted to kind of now move on to the media side of it, because we looked at the systems, looked at leadership a little bit as well, and Fiona, in your research, you have shown that media representation shapes who feels welcome in cycling. My question to you is, what's one example where you visibly where visibly that changed, kind of better representation, more representation, visibly changed the participation outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same conversation, actually. So if you,
Okay.
so our research looks at, has looked at women's experience in mountain bike culture predominantly. And mountain bike culture is male-dominated and masculine. And those two things are not necessarily the same, but they are in the case of mountain biking. And so women often have a very uncomfortable experience in navigating those cultures. Often, despite the best intentions of the very supportive men in their lives. So it is just the case that if you are navigating a world that you don't really know the rules of, it's uncomfortable. And if you don't have the symbolic resources provided to you by marketing and media representation, it's very difficult to understand how to act, how to behave, because all the identities that you see before you don't reflect your own. And there are loads of examples of where intentional representational content has shaped women's experiences. But I think so a good example is a recent race that was held in the UK called the Hope Tech Women's Enduro. We know that in enduro gravity racing, only about 5 to 10% of normal mixed gender races will be women. And this women-only event attracted 229 women to this little corner of the UK. I know it was a women-only race, but those women who came because the representation, the visual culture, the language, the content of all the promotional material said, you will be welcome. This is for you. You may never have raced your bike before. Some of the women who were there couldn't even ride the track without putting a foot down. They're like, I'm just going to give it a go because I know the culture will be welcoming. Similarly, we run women-only communities for mountain bikers, and I ask women, I say, would you turn up to the mixed gender ride that we also run? And they laugh at me. Absolutely not. Because they are worried and nervous, not because any particular man has done anything particularly bad, because they are worried and nervous that mountain bike culture ultimately doesn't feel like a place for them. And so the other part to the answer is that representational content has to work hard because we have to unpick history. So this is not something that's a recent problem. Mountain biking has been represented in media and marketing since the 70s, and it has been represented as male-dominated and masculine since the 70s. So this is something we have to work hard at. So there is no one example. Right. That is not how it works. It's got to be consistent. We have to consistently say the same thing, which is women are welcome. This is a sport for you.
And I think you not only have to say it, you have to talk the talk and walk the talk.
Absolutely.
Because, sometimes we've had events that say, adaptive riders are welcome, but when they get there, the environment or some of the logistics really can't support a rider in a wheelchair. Yeah. And so we have to be very intentional when we say, do you have this? When you have restrooms, is there a chair in the restroom for them to? So we have to start asking more questions, which we really didn't know either. And so I think it's always that learning and that being curious and asking and wanting people to feel like, again, we're welcoming you and we want you to belong.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And it's going back to that idea there's a difference. We've been recently doing some work around events and talking to event and race organisers about how to encourage more women to come to events. And you get kind of a continuum of answers when you talk to race organisers. On one end, you get, we'll do anything we can, we'll absolutely strive, be proactive, we'll listen to women, we'll talk to women, we'll understand their experiences, we'll set guidelines. We won't do it unless we get 50%. We get this end. And then we get the other end, which is what's stopping them coming? They can come if they want. And so there's a difference between making women feel welcome and telling them they can come if they want to.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I guess it shows a male-centric view of the world. It does, yeah. And it highlights the fact that you need women on those, or kind of at the level where you are making decisions, because it's just the feedback that and the decisions will be better, and the feedback you collect from other women participants will help to highlight what is being done that can be improved. And just for a moment, I wanted to kind of bring Claudia into discussion in the sense of the product development, for women specifically, because from your perspective in the sports arena, in the sports bra, how was the process of distilling the feedback that you received from athletes into the product development?
Yep. So we worked with about 15 athletes I had told the story about how we conducted the survey. And so we really chose athletes who were a variety of body sizes and different sports types, so that it was addressing all women's needs, right? That's the final goal, is to make sure that every woman can find the bra she really wants to exercise in. 63% of all women still experience breast pain during exercise. It's holding women back. And we also know that teenagers in particular, right? They're in pain already. And now we're putting them into boys' straight cut thing. They have to run around the field and then they all have breast pain because, oh my gosh. So there's so much we can do. But it was really finding the women who were the toughest, right? So marathon runners. We also worked with swim runners because they run for 10.5 hours and alternate between land and water sport, back and forth with a wetsuit on the whole time, pressing the bra down into their wet skin. So we're like, if we nail it with them, we're good. And we had just really failure after failure. So the woman who called this whole who initiated the project and was for female, she's an Olympic marathon runner. We were working with a design lab in Milan at the time. We had figured out the textile that we wanted to use, which was the foundation of the product, and then we had to build on that. So we knew upper breast stability was the key factor. So 92% of breast stability is when your upper breast is held still. So any sports bra that you might see from legacy sportswear brands spending millions of dollars on advertisements that show cleavage are not going to function because there's nothing holding down the upper breast anymore, right? But this is kind of known research. And when I was at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, I discovered that these brands know that there is a direct correlation between musculoskeletal health, specifically ACL injuries, and breast support. But they have done nothing to initiate any research on it or to find out more, and they're definitely financially more capable than Swijin. And then we see, the $1 million commercial, and it's like, but that's lying, isn't it? That's just marketing story that has no science behind it. And so when we were developing the bra in Europe, we started to realize that the sportswear market is called the place of stitch. It's like where are products actually made. And unfortunately, the Europeans no longer really know how to make sportswear. And there's a lot of innovation that isn't even available or known to manufacturers here. So we ended up working with a sports bra manufacturer, very specific, in Asia. And we were able to implement the upper breast stability piece because this athlete had lost complete trust in us. We were 4 weeks late delivering the prototype. When it came, the upper breast band was fluttering around on the bra. It wasn't gripping anything. I got on a flight. I flew to the manufacturer, and we worked for 2.5 weeks straight with 16 people on the project, sometimes till 3 in the morning. And I brought the bra back on my lap in the airplane. And then I went to her. She was on vacation in Switzerland, and she took me on a run. I was dying. And she said to me, ich bin überzeugt, which is Swiss German, the highest compliment you can get, and it means I am convinced.
Really?
So.
Oh yeah. Brilliant. I mean, where do you go from there? I mean,
I think it's a great story about listening to women and really going to where they are and understanding their experiences. And I think we've seen most of our research is either with women or with smaller brands, smaller organisations, and that's what I think is missing a lot of the time. And I think, you know, when we hear brands and media organisations say, well, we don't really know what women think of us. We don't collect the data. We understand our audience, but our audience is men, and predominantly men. And there's very little, you know, you've got to break that cycle, haven't you? You've got to go to where the women are, and you've got to talk to them and listen to them and speak to them. And that's really challenging for smaller organisations. But that story says how important it is,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think building on that, kind of the listening to the athlete and following through on that feedback, you know, that also plays as well. Then how do you tell this story so that other athletes, women, girls can start relating? And I wanted to kind of direct this question to you, Fiona. I mean, it's kind of authenticity is said very cheaply, if you will. But when you start kind of in the metaphor of the onion, you start peeling down the layers. What it does actually look like when you want to include and better represent women?
Well, I think, you know, as I said before, I think we're all talking about the same thing. So the whole kind of cycling ecosystem that includes marketing and media, particularly in mountain biking, but I think in all parts of cycling, those two things are so entangled, because what you tend to consume in the media is very much produced by brand content a lot of the time. And there is obviously an important place for journalistic content, but a lot of the content in the media is produced by brands. So we talk about the marketing media complex as this sort of this huge sort of ecosystem that starts with engineers designing products and ends with a woman who doesn't feel like she's part of the sport. And there's a huge food chain in between, as one of our participants explained to me. She said, I just see it as this huge food chain, and everything, you know, is related to everything else. And of course, the ripple that you see through all of these different stages, from product design to participation, is male dominance. And until we change that, it's very difficult to say to a woman, you are part of cycling culture, you are part of this sport, because actually somewhere down the line, back here, there was a press launch, and there weren't any women at the press launch, and there weren't any bikes that were the right size for the women bike reviewers to ride, and so there weren't any bike reviews, and there were, you know, so it's not about the woman walking into a bike shop and feeling patronised by a 16-year-old Saturday boy.
Right.
It's about
It's
every
all
single
the way
chain,
down
every
at the
single
chain.
stage in this chain.
Yeah.
And that's complex, right? And certainly one of the things I'm going to talk about tomorrow is that we have identified through our research lots of people in that food chain of, you know, men and women who recognise that. Most of them are here, and they know that. And we in our research we call them the gender progressive entrepreneurs. But tomorrow I'll call them the catalysts, because it's a lot easier to say. So these are these catalysts that are scattered through that ecosystem, who recognise that actually, you know, shouting at women and saying, come and cycle, it's great, is not actually, is part of it, persuasive, and it's really important to put lots in place to make sure women have opportunities to cycle. But actually, to really make systemic shift, you've got to think about this whole food chain, this whole ecosystem.
Well, and again, I think you're right. It starts, we have women engineers, and we are going to Swijin. It's a conference of about 18,000 women that are women engineers that's held in the States. And so we're doing a tech talk. We just won our components, I should say, the Tour La Femme and the Tour de France, and we're saying it started with them, and you've got women. And we're going to talk about how the women that helped frame and shape those components that were part of that ecosystem that ultimately got on those bikes that helped them win, it helps young women see you can make a difference. You can contribute to something much larger than you and have a voice and see the impact of what you're doing. And same thing when we go back in high schools and we start looking at women in STEM and trying to help inspire them and to be able to see. Because if you can't see someone in a role that you aspire to be, then how do you dream the possibility? And so by helping them see that connection, we think that's going to help.
Yeah, that's well put. That's very
really well
good. I mean, I had as you were, explaining that, and the point is that I was kind of remembering a podcast episode that I recorded with the product manager, Cassia Geiger, and she was telling me that in 20 years of her work experience, she only had one female work colleague as a product manager. So it kind of highlights kind of the critical point that needs to be addressed. And one thing that I wanted to also ask, specifically to Fiona, but it's open to everyone if you want to, is that when companies are measuring their impact in terms of their kind of marketing campaigns, are they thinking about job retention for the kind of people like more women coming into the cycling industry, or are they just thinking we want more sales from women?
A lot of the organisations that we've involved in our research, it's honestly, it's off the radar. There's definitely, which are smaller organisations. So I think in our research, we interviewed marketing and media professionals from a range of organisations. Some of them were the big bike brands that we've all heard of, and some of them were UK only, quite specific niche organisations. And what we found was a lot of patriarchal matrix, let's call it that. So invisibility. So just doing the thing that we always do, the men make the decisions. It's really, women don't apply for the jobs. What can I possibly do? And we see a lot of that. At the other end of the scale, and in the larger organisations, there was a purpose, a social purpose for progression around lots of different social issues, sustainability, gender progress, ethnicity, and that was built into the brand ethos, and it was literally written down. They said, oh, have you seen our brand guidelines? Here you go, here's the book. And you can open the page on gender, and you can say, this is what we stand for, this is what we believe in. And when it was written into the way the brand operated, into their DNA, it trickled down. And then what we found was we talked to people and they could articulate the daily practices and the decisions that they made that were about driving gender progressive strategy in a really clear way, including recruitment. And it was so important that we had diverse voices around the table. And if they didn't have it, it was a problem, and there was something they were trying to address, and they were very proactive about it. But I would say that isn't happening at all layers of the industry.
I mean, I think it's SRAM, crawl, walk, run is what I like to say. So we're probably a little more than crawling. We're not quite walking yet, but we do. So we do have social responsibility. We talk about sustainability. We definitely talk about DEI. I think we, again, are more intentional when we do certain roles. We want to make sure we have a diverse candidate slate, both in terms of the candidate and the interviewers, to make sure we're collecting those voices. I will say, I think our marketing team is one of the most diverse teams within SRAM, where you've got women at all levels of the organization that are there when we do product launches, when we do a lot of our marketing, to make sure that we're looking at it from this sort of what we call a 360 view. I think they do an excellent job of that. I think there's still opportunity to translate that down further into the organization, but I will say we're trying. It's something we continue to aspire to do better at.
Mm-hmm. And in your experience, Claudia, how is it, as a woman founder, how have you kind of, if you will, created the mission of the company? Have you created the mission to be centered around your values, around having more women come to work with you?
Yeah. I'm really excited to build out, hopefully, the future of the company and see, because you can experiment with people who, you don't make these decisions by yourself internally. You actually go and you read and you talk to experts and you get advice on how to do this correctly. But I'm really excited to be able to do that, and for people who come to the company to feel like they can fulfill, at least for that chapter of their life, fully their talents within the company and see that come to fruition, right? I think women are very perceptive on whether a company is being honest or lying. they're very perceptive, and they write us, when there's a translation error, for example, in the German site where you have gender-specific language for addressing an athlete or athletin, and we made a mistake, and they were upset and wrote us. I'm like, oh, you're taking ownership stake of the company now, right? Or in customer service, what I'm realizing is women love being taken seriously, and I write that all the time because, God, am I sick of not being taken seriously. Sorry, by men. Sorry, not all men, but right in my career path, it certainly has been my lesson. So at some point I just had enough. I'm like, let's just start your own company, how fun would that be? And I see it in customer service as well. So if women have a problem, if you really address, if they're angry, it's perfect because you call them, you take them seriously, you show them you're working with them, you make them sort of your case study for lifetime value customer. Those are the best ones because they're so thankful because they're so sick of not being taken seriously by other brands and companies. I mean, we're still a startup, so we could still do that now. I hope we could scale that.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Well, I mean, you are on a journey to get there.
And I don't want to stay only a women's company. Just to be clear, for diversity, it's really important also for us, right? So hopefully men will want to come and work for our company.
But a lot of what you're
They'll be
saying,
mothered.
Claudia, ties to the head and the heart. It's the emotion. And despite what people say or do, it's how they make you feel is what you remember. And to your point, you're tapping into that. That's why you're getting lifelong customers. And if you've got a female and she's got a boyfriend or a husband, she's going to say great things. So I think it'll organically have an opportunity to grow. But I do like that strategy. It's the head and the heart.
I wanted now to bring the conversation and to kind of the outlook. We have been talking about what has been happening, what's the ambitions and what's been done. But I wanted now to focus now, if people ask, so what? I want us to reflect about kind of the actions intentional actions, as we mentioned, the intentionality of it. So I want now to move on to I'm going to ask the same question that all of you will get to answer on your own ways. So the question is this, What change are you personally leading in 2026? And what's your one ask of the industry to help us reach the 50% female workforce by 2030?
What?
So,
It goes in this order.
Oh, this is the order. Let's see. For me, intentionally, what are we trying to lead in 2026? I'll look at it internally and I'll look at it externally because I think they are connected. Internally, I would like to continue to drive programs and drive resources and tools and experiences that help women that are at entry and middle levels within our organization feel inspired to sort of stick around to keep climbing. We don't have it perfect, but I at least want them to feel they have a voice, they have a platform, tell us what they need, and let's have a collaborative discussion on how to continue to help them feel like they can get themselves there. That's what I aspire to for my internal teams.
Yeah.
Externally, I think we are making inroads in trying to be seen to be more inclusive in different ways. We have an amazing community program that focuses on bringing people under what we're trying to build as a bigger tent. I think how we continue to promote that, I think how we continue to make people feel not only like they're included, but they belong, and expand cycling, both for people that may have never cycled and for people that have cycled forever, but at their level and based on their experiences, it could look entirely different. So, we've had people come and speak, and we've had rides where people are riding with people that have never ridden a bike, with people that, have never had a $500 bike, let alone a $15,000 bike. And it's trying to sort of mentor or pull those two experiences together so that they can learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I think mountain biking is the best sport in the world.
I think it's crazy and drives up our
It's magical. And I think that there are so many amazing benefits for people of all kinds of benefits. mental health, physical health, connection with nature. And it makes me very sad that for some people that is off the radar. And what I see is other sports taking the charge in recognising and understanding that there's been gender inequality or other types of inequality in their histories. Football, cricket. Don't ask me what cricket is for people who aren't British. I will explain later, I just haven't got time. So cricket, football, rugby. I've just watched the two Women's Rugby World Cup matches that were in Bristol recently. So there are other sports taking the charge, and they have looked at their sport and they have identified where the levers are. What are the levers that they need to change? And for televised sports, television and media broadcast is one of the main things. We don't have that in mountain biking. We've got to figure out what our levers are. So for me, it's about understanding the ecosystem specific to mountain biking and identifying which levers we need to pull. And they are subtle, they are difficult, and they're challenging. They involve grassroots organisations, trail advocacy organisations, policy organisations, national organisations, brands, industry and media, and participants. And I think what I would love is for media and marketing, particularly organisations, to take that opportunity, because they have such an important role to play in shifting that dial, changing those dials, pulling those levers and shifting the culture and opening mountain biking up to women and girls. I don't want to ever interview another 17-year-old girl who tells me that they never thought mountain biking was for them because it's a boys' sport. I never want to see that again. And I think that can change. And that's what I want to ask for the future, for next year.
Very good.
It is absolutely a gorgeous sport. You're making me want to do it again because I used to go with my son, and now you got me all excited. 2026, I think, for the first time now, because we're still obviously in product innovation and really specifically honed in on that. What I was talking about before with these systems, like what I'm starting to experience now as I'm growing the brand is, we're actually at this is an ecosystem that is going to continue to be very challenging because it is male dominated and it's been focused on the male model of how things have been done. And there's nothing wrong with that for the men, but there's something really systematically wrong with that for women and specifically young athletes. And I have this protective instinct because I used to be a high school English teacher, so they're all young people, right? And I love them and I want to protect them and take care of them. And when I see that an athlete sponsor is not only not even responding to an offer, where he should be proactively focusing on getting her even more marketing costs, because these athletes, if they're sponsored correctly, get 2/3 of their salary from marketing and not just from their clubs. So it's like complete neglect, right? But probably he's not doing it on purpose to harm her. But this is the kind of thing that I'd like to do now, is get more curious about the system and understand better how Swijin can grow to become sort of a systems changer and a lighthouse brand that is modeling better behavior.
Nice, very nice.
Brilliant. So, I wanted to finish with this because it gives us here, people listening, kind of action points where you can start reflecting on them and kind of planting the seed on people's minds about what can be done, what can I do in my own ways. So I guess I wanted to conclude this recording. Thank you, all of you. Thank Angela, Fiona, and Claudia for being amazing and very eloquent. Sorry, I blundered that. But very, the experts in your own field, and that your passion, expertise comes across, and then that's what we need. Need that to be transferred into all the companies, into the board level, into grassroots movements, into product development. In a way, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for the audience. And I wanted to give a round of applause to our panel. Brilliant. That brings us to the end of this special live recording from Women in Cycling Summit Series. Today, you heard powerful insights from Angela Kraft-Williams, Dr. Fiona Spotswood, and Claudia Glass. 3 leaders showing us how intentional leadership, authentic representation, and female-led innovation can transform the cycling industry. So the big takeaway is this: change doesn't happen. It takes intentional action and starts with listening, designing differently, and creating spaces where women feel they belong. If this conversation got you thinking, whether it is how you show up in your workplace, how you ride, how you support others, please share it with 2 people you think it might resonate with. And this is my ask to you: follow Ride to Success wherever you listen to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. We have got more conversations lined up with people who are shaping the future of the cycling industry. And I want you to be part of it. Thank you for being with us today.